Hi, everybody. Welcome to season 3, episode 7 of Fabulously Candice. We are slowly coming to the end of the Fabulously Candice podcast. Wild. And I'm in a different room today. We've had a transformer blowout where I live and at our office. And so I improvise. So it's kind of a beautiful space and the light's coming in, and it's the perfect time to have Nel and Bex back on the podcast. How long has it been, by the way? Feels like it's been a year about.
It's been more than a year, because I remember we were in our bedroom in Wellington, and we have actually left New Zealand just about a year ago.
Okay, so let me just give everybody an update and then we're going to dive in. But yeah, I remember when we did that, we loved it so much. We said, let's just do it again. So I'm so happy we're doing it again. It's perfect. So when we last met Nel and Bex, they were living in New Zealand. Bex was a doctor and Nel was a communications professional. Last year in July 2022, the couple moved to the US to be near Bex's teenager, whom they hadn't seen for 2.5 years due to the COVID pandemic. Bex, pronouns they, them, now works for a nonprofit agency supporting people seeking affordable housing, while Nel, they, them, is a bus driver. I'm so curious about that job, by the way. Bex and Nel have been together for 5.5 years and married for 4. About 3 years ago, Bex found out they were autistic, and since that time, Nel and Bex have been on a journey of discovery, learning how their different neurotypes interact and affect their communication and intimacy with each other. Welcome back. How's it been going, you two?
Such a good job with that bio.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry. What? Have something
Was that on the video?
Of course.
yeah, we're on video. Yeah. We're all on video right now.
Okay, never mind.
You know, well, this is just how it is.
Something in my teeth. Just tell me now.
I think you have a little seed in your teeth.
Okay. All right. Is it gone?
No, it's fine. It's
okay.
just a little black spot.
People won't be able to see.
No.
People won't be able to see. I couldn't see it.
Embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we are, right? How are you two doing?
Well,
that's loaded. That's a loaded question, isn't it?
I've just made a pledge. I made a pledge after the last session that I would try not to talk. So I'm just going to try and let Bex answer everything first.
I think when we listened to the podcast, Nel thought they had talked too much.
Okay. I didn't feel that way.
Oh, thank you.
I can't really remember. But today we're doing really well.
Okay.
We'll have a day off together, which is great. But it's been a really hard sort of slog coming here, adjusting, and
it's been very hard. I think, like our relationship is it's been really good for our relationship because it's been really hard on us.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think let's dissect that a little bit. Okay. Because for folks listening, that's such a just something I think it would be really great for us to dive into. I guess where I go is I would think it would be really hard on the relationship to have that significant of a move, and then both career changes or job changes, and then just acclimating to life back in the States. So, but what I'm hearing is that perhaps it's not been that. It's been good for you. So let's go there. What's been good about this? All the transitions.
Well, so let's see. I had really wanted to leave clinical medicine. So it's an opportunity to do that. The hard thing, I mean, we saved a lot of money and then we came here, and it was unbelievably hard to find housing and super expensive, and hard to find work that had commensurate income. And I applied for all sorts of online jobs, never really got anywhere. And, either they just didn't want me, or they weren't, some remote jobs. I wanted to do something like medical writing or consulting or,
But Bex worked really hard, like even before we left New Zealand, to try and get a remote job, and like put so much energy into these cover letters and tailoring their CV for all the different positions that they applied for. I mean, you reckon there must have been over 50 jobs that
all the things they tell you on LinkedIn to do. And then probably places that were either requiring people to sort of go back to the office, but they were like in Washington, DC or New York or whatever. Or, you can work remotely from lots of places, but not Montana. I mean, and then we were in this place. So, I mean, there's a lot of layers. Like we were in this town where I moved from when I went to New Zealand, with my ex and my kid. And now it's really small. It's very conservative. The cost of living has skyrocketed. I think with COVID, people went and like bought all these houses to live and work remotely, and whatever, all Airbnbs, and it's incredibly hard to find housing, and I ended up, my first job was working at Starbucks, and then I was at this printing factory putting swag in boxes for, I don't know, corporate swag. Yeah. And it was a great job for me. I mean, I could go in, they let me wear my noise canceling headphones as normally they wouldn't, because you could get run over by a forklift. But when I proved to them that I could hear the forklift with my headphones, then they were okay.
Oh, good.
So, like you make your own schedule, you go in and you do your thing and you leave. Like it was perfect for an autistic person, but not good for a person in their 50s who's starting to have like orthopedic issues and sore hands.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But anyway,
and Bex's hands got all cut up, like the skin on them was
sore and everything.
It was winter as well, so very cold and
no health insurance. And that was another thing, like coming back here and trying to navigate that.
And your other job, you had 3 jobs.
And then I also worked at the warming center in Livingston, this town. So which was an overnight shelter for homeless people, which closed halfway through the season because of lack of funding. So I was doing, and that was nighttime work. And then Nell got a job in the school cafeteria. So
I was the first to get a job. I got a job basically 2 days after we arrived, because I just didn't feel confident. I couldn't sit still and just try and apply for remote work and hope that I would get it. Like I just thought I have to get started on work. And I didn't really want to do remote work. I wanted to work with Americans. So I started working in the high school kitchen, doing managing the salad bar, which, the last time I worked in a kitchen was in my early 20s when I was at university, and it was a shock. I mean, I was standing up for 8+ hours a day, having been previously like a sedentary worker. I remember getting home from work and my feet, they felt like they were just on fire. I would lie down in the shower and put them under the water, because they I think I described it to myself as like they throbbed, they hummed with pain. And so I felt like I was outputting like actual kind of sensory waves from my feet.
Wow.
Yeah, anyway, I don't want
It's a lot. It's a lot for the two of you.
And
I cleaned houses on the side.
Wow.
because I was only getting paid $15.82 an hour. So
there was, but the trauma part. So there was my ex. I mean, I didn't realize, but I should have realized, because I actually tried to go back in 2016 for part of the time, and it was just terrible for my mental health. That was before I met Nell, obviously. But it was, just almost like this PTSD kind of thing. I mean, the relationship it's sort of at a distance civil, but we aren't friends in any way. Like we don't, and I can't get hooked into the stuff, even just being there. And then, and one of the first like community things we went to was a school board meeting where they were discussing the fate of a librarian who back in May of 2022 had taught a lesson to third graders on pride. And this was now in September. So all summer
Was it
there had
third?
been,
I thought it was older than that. Was it only third grade?
yeah, it's third graders.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
But
But it was just about pride, it wasn't
Oh,
like,
yeah.
but apparently the parents were up in arms because she hadn't given requisite notice that this was going to be.
Oh,
I mean, basically, if you want to do sex education, whatever. I mean,
yeah.
so we were at this like lynching, felt like all
Oh.
these people were like, fire her, and terrible. And I mean, like
That sounds traumatic.
that was the start of a series of, I think, traumatic events, basically.
Yeah.
So it's not just coming from another country. We were being non-binary in a small Montana town.
Small, conservative, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
And it's, yeah.
And also a town where Bex's ex-wife sort of loomed quite large and has a picture framing shop on a corner of the main street. And so it's just kind of felt like
you couldn't get away.
Yeah. So we've moved from there now. We've moved to a neighboring bigger town, and it's much better.
We've moved to Bozeman, which is, a
Better.
very short flight from Salt Lake City.
Oh, good. Hey.
It is better. It's kind of suburban. Actually, I've never lived in a place like this. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, but we can see the mountains and it feels more anonymous, but it's not super crowded like a big city. So it's kind of good. And, it's super expensive. It's probably, but it's actually not a lot. I mean, it used to be like you would pay 3 times more for the same place here than in Livingston, but now it's just like maybe a few $100s more, but not many times more. And, so I have a better job now. The organization that ran the warming center, I really liked the organization and I really wanted to keep working for them. So I took a job doing property management because that was the only thing sort of going available that was full-time, had benefits. And that was in Livingston. And then when we decided to move over here, I just magically out of the blue was approached to apply for this other job in Bozeman, doing case management for Section 8 voucher recipients. And that hasn't started yet. I have
with the same organization,
which also has a transport. I mean, they do housing, they do senior assistance, they do early childhood education. They
run a free public transport system.
Public bus system, which Nel can explain how that, Nel was doing that. So they have, it's quite a good organization, and they do a lot of good stuff. But helping people get housing in this community, I mean, it's a real need, and it's probably hugely frustrating in a way.
Yeah.
I've read
estimates for the organization. Hugely frustrating for
for the prospective tenants, for the case managers, for everyone who's involved trying to get people housing, affordable housing.
Stressing for the prospective tenants.
Oh yeah,
like it was for us.
Well, I love. I'll just kind of break it down because just even in that moment, right? As a mixed neurotype couple, as Bex shared, and Nel just asked for clarification. So I want to start.
That is something that I've really been learning to do. Like I feel that's real progress that I've made. Well, that Bex has helped me to make since we last spoke. Because I make immediate meaning out of stuff that Bex says. I mean, I do that with everyone, just that's just the way my neurotypical brain works. As someone says something, I make a meaning out of it, and then I decide that is what it means. But with Bex, I'm learning, well, no, it doesn't mean that. And we had an example today, like a text message. What was it that you sent me? Yeah, that's right. So Bex took their teenager to get a tattoo, which end up panning out because the tattoo shop doesn't tattoo minors anymore. So they had to go to this other place. And the first thing Bex said in the text about it to me was, the other tattoo place is between dispensaries and smells of weed. So
that was the first thing I noticed when I walked in.
So
I mean, I guess I relate information kind of
like reportage.
chronologically.
Yeah, chronologically.
We walked into the place and the first thing I noticed was it smelled like weed. So that's the first thing I told Nell about it, because the kids wanted to go to, so we didn't end up getting the tattoo because we had to make an appointment. And it's a long story. We had to have more documents to get the tattoo for a 17-year-old than we probably did to get green cards for them. But
but the meaning I made of that was I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like a good place to go. So I texted back immediately and said, I don't think you should go to that place. And then Bex was like, why? ? And I was like, what do you mean why? Because you've just told me it smells of weed and it's between dispensaries.
Yes.
I thought, oh, hang on a minute. Bex isn't telling me that they think that they shouldn't go there. They're just telling me what they observe.
Because actually the place looked quite, I mean, the second thing I noticed was it was roomy. It looked really inviting. It looked really clean.
But why did you say all that?
Well, I did after you.
I know, because that's the thing, is that then Bex started telling me, oh, but why? It seems nicer. It seems clean. It's it's better than the other place. And I was like, oh, okay. So actually the responsibility is on me to seek more information before I make an assessment.
I just thought it was interesting that it smelled like weed, because at first, if it hadn't been for the dispensaries next door or the fact that weed is legal, I would have been like, kind of, whoa, that's
Well, and what I want to say is, if we look at it as the two of you in relationship, then it really is on both of you. And so Nell, I like how you're saying, okay, I can be aware of this. And maybe if I need to ask for clarification through the text, I can do that. And then Bex also, I do what you do, Bex. Okay. Similar brain. I will literally just say something mid-sentence. I will leave out the front end. And so Chris is like, what are you, okay, wait, what are we even talking about? Right.
So that sentence, you could have been saying that like 3 minutes earlier. And for you, you've been able to remember the first part of it. And then you've just picked up where you left off.
Yes.
And then because, maybe Chris, I'm just like, okay, I have to think back. It's like those, like those toys that you can put together with like, you don't want to put 2 legs together or 2 arms.
When they have the magnets, it's like, And so I just love that awareness of, okay, I can ask clarifying questions, and then Bex also being aware of, and that there's like this pause that comes in, like, oh, I said that. Okay, maybe I could add this in, right? So it's like,
aware of what?
Well, like what Candice does. I just want to know if you are aware of that and if you do try and do it.
I'm not really sure what it is. I'm sorry.
I love that. I love that you're asking for clarification, because again, this is where I'm such an advocate for, we're humans. We all have different neurotypes. And so it's not up to one or the other to fix how we communicate. It's up to all of us. So the three of us are having a conversation. How beautiful that you're wanting me to clarify, which is really that awareness of, and really, I'm not
make something up. I'm
not saying that you're doing this. I'm just giving a suggestion. This is like a free therapy session on a podcast, which is, if Nell says, oh my, it's between 2 dispensaries, well, don't go there. Then it's just pausing and reading what you said. Maybe say, oh, I left out,
well, that's what I did.
I left out, right?
Yeah, like, oh, why? And then, oh, okay, yes, I should explain that actually the weed wasn't really bothersome. It was just,
but you didn't put in that prefix of, oh, right, I should explain. You just put, well, it seems nice, and it seems this, and it seems that, and I have to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess,
because I like what Candice says, is that, because sometimes I feel like as the neurotypical person, I feel like I have, I feel like I've got privilege, so I have to do more work than you.
Good awareness. Okay.
And sometimes I feel really sort of backed off by that, like I don't want to. But
Yeah.
I accept that, autistic people get a really tough time in the world. And so most of the time I'm happy to do it. But just sometimes I think, oh, why can't, like what Candice just said, Candice does this with her own partner. So you could do that too.
Well, and I'm not perfect, I will tell you. I mean, Chris and I, the thing that saves Chris and I is humor, because he'll repeat back what I say. And then I'm like, did I really just say that?
Well,
Awesome.
I think that's the thing.
Great.
It's humor, and
humor is great.
but also because it's awareness, because like if I mean, I guess I could look back at the text. I don't know. I was in the bathroom. I was actually sitting on the toilet.
At Target? Jeez, I had no idea. I thought you were in an aisle.
No. And
I just love that the whole world knows that Bex was on the toilet.
At Target? You on your phone? That seems quite grubby. I don't know.
But I don't know. I'm not always aware. I mean, I'm not always aware that my communication isn't, that it isn't clear, because I think I'm being very direct, but it isn't always clear. So
oh, let's pause with that. Let's pause, because that's such an important statement that I want everyone to hear. Because that, I agree with you, with me, where I am direct too. Like, tell it like it is, right? I'll say that, or I'll tell it like it is. And that awareness of, okay, I might be direct, but it's not necessarily clear all the time. And that's just beautiful awareness. What I love too is we're taking out that the responsibility is on Nel, as the non-autistic person, or the responsibility is on Bex as the autistic person. It's like, no, it's on all parties. It's all of our responsibility. And does that take a lot of work? Yeah, because I think it's easy sometimes to either stuff our feelings and not say anything and just walk around resentful, right? Or project onto the other person that frustration. So I love that Nel just said, I feel like I have privilege. And so I do feel, and at my words, kind of burdened at times to like, okay, I've got to be the one that's being, patient and aware. But what about Bex too? Right. Yeah.
I try hard. I mean, when you point it out, I don't always, I guess, notice.
No, but you really do take on board feedback. I mean, I think probably that's to our advantage that we both take on feedback quite well, don't you think? I mean,
yeah. Well, let's pause there too, because this is what I love about having the two of you on a podcast. It really ends up being like a therapy session, and the two of you really demonstrate beautifully for a mixed neurotype couple, and those that are listening that are mixed neurotype couples, just how validation of the other person and acknowledgement of what the other person is doing well feeds the relationship. What I saw with Bex, as I was observing, was some kind of like a little bit my words. So maybe there was an energy that I saw, or just, I don't want you to feel shame at all or bad at all, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this, all the time. And so I love how Nel just naturally said, but I feel like we do. And I feel like you, just those little nuggets of compliments, those are what build and strengthen a relationship. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Bex is really amazing partner.
But apparently sometimes I'm really irritating.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can feel.
We all are.
Yeah. but no, I mean, I think you're pretty you're pretty special, I think.
I really feel like Nel has gone the extra mile and see me, and I just think about
but honestly, we've had our most testing of times since we came to Montana.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm just so glad that we've managed to grow from it, because we've had times where we've behaved very badly. I've behaved really badly. and it's been terrible, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'll just say, as also a human, that there are times where I behave really badly too, and Chris behaves really badly, you know, where we say things or we might end up yelling at each other. And it's like we throw out all the things we know that we could use to make it better because we're just having a strong reaction to something. And that's part of being human, right?
Totally. Yeah,
So
that's
glad you said that.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I think that's the other thing is like we have such a strong bond, and it's often felt like, I mean, I feel like if this doesn't work, nothing will, I mean, I go there, and
I think another thing that's been really hard, that's amplified the difficulty, is that we hear with, we came here for Bex's kid, and that whole situation really has not worked out the way we had hoped or envisaged, that, we would become this beautiful family and we'd have half the time with them and it would all be sweet. It hasn't worked out like that at all. But we've also got my daughter, and so we're managing a blended family situation with her, and we have her all the time, whereas before she went to her dad's half the time, and so we would get time alone. But now we don't have that, and she has her own response to I mean, she's her own type of neurodivergence, we believe. She might have ADHD, and we're getting her assessed for that. And so she and Bex interact in a different
our
way.
neurotypes clash. Like Lola's ADHD, whatever, I mean, overstimulates me. I mean, I hats off to people who are both, because God, I can't even imagine what my brain would be like, because I was diagnosed with ADHD years ago, but I actually don't think I think it was autism the whole time. And actually, I mean, there might be a little bit, but so, and my autistic brain drives Lola nuts, and
so there have been significant crises, dynamic crises, and Lola has said things to me like, "Oh, I just don't know how you can be with Bex. I mean, you should leave them. You should." And if Bex has like a meltdown about something that's happened with Lola, or I mean, it really has been. I mean, those things happened in New Zealand, but they've been so much, more pronounced here.
And they're compounded. So now I'm taking notes. So we're really in a free live session. So I'm going to actually just respond to everything that you're saying. Okay. First, I want to say, Bex, I've also had that. If I can't get it right in this relationship, basically I'm fucked. Okay. So I'm with you. I get it. Right. I think that I just want you to know I get it. Okay. And then when Nel said, hey, we're going to move here and things are going to be great, right? Bex will be closer to child and things will just be great. And then they're not. Chris and I had a very similar situation where we said, the first of last year, oh my gosh, let's get a house in this other state to be closer to our daughters. So his daughters, my stepdaughters, I like to say our daughters.
Yeah.
And it just backfired. Okay. Shit hit the fan. It backfired, and the relationships actually diminished. So what we realized, but it brought Chris and I closer together. And what we realized was it's like us being here in a different state a lot, and that space actually gives us an opportunity to have a relationship. Whereas when we're right there, it just is too challenging because of the ex and so on. And it doesn't matter if they're 32, doesn't matter if they're adults. There's always a parent, and so for us, we got closer. So I want to say that.
Sorry.
Right. The other thing I want to say so really just to validate, Nel, when you're talking about the crises and the challenges, how normal it is when you are sharing a child with someone, and it goes from that to having the child full time. Again, it doesn't matter how old, if your daughter is 7, it just doesn't matter. It's going to create a lot of stress on the dynamic with your child, and also with your relationship, because they're there all the time. And so I really want to normalize that and just validate it. And it's also just a test, because I don't know that I've met a stepchild that's liked the step parent. My stepdaughters, if they listen to this, they listen to it. I love my stepdaughters, and I also know that my stepdaughters love me and they hate me, and it just depends on the day. And I'm not surprised when they're mad at me. I'm not surprised anymore if they're throwing me under the bus. I don't care that this is live, because I've actually said that before to them. It's like, if so-and-so's upset, I'm not surprised. Like, I'm just, because really, as a step parent, we can't win, and we're never going to win.
Yeah.
But but the opportunity now, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here with what I'm going to say next, is that you just show your daughter we're a unified front, and Bex isn't going anywhere.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's pretty much, I mean, to talk about something quite sort of personal, like, I mean, obviously we want to have sex. Like,
that'd be hard.
we both, for both of us,
Mm-hmm.
sex is a healthy part of an intimate
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
It is.
And our committed relationship. And we declared that to each other up front when we met. Like, we basically had this big talk, and we both agreed that sex was very important to both of us, because we've both been in situations where the sexual side of the relationship was very problematic, and we didn't want that. So coming here, not having Lola go away half the time, we still want to have sex. And so it's come into the family conversation of like, oh, Nel and Bex have sex, and oh God, I heard them having sex. And the two kids have talked about it, but because we haven't seen Kai very much since before we moved over here from the small town, we weren't seeing her very much, because she was in a play, and just it made sense for her to be with her mum. But basically Lola started commenting on our sex life, like, and honestly, you could, like, we're living in this house where it's completely unsoundproof, and we are so quiet. Like, we have got our sex life, the audio from our sex life, we have decreased it to almost zero decibels, I believe. And yet Lola will still say, I can't believe you had to do that this morning. I mean, trust me, it's not like we're doing it as much as we could or would like to. We just like do it when we, feel like we've got the opportunity, and we're going to do it. And like, so this morning she was like, I can't believe I mean, did you really have to start my day off by doing that? Like, start her day off by us having sex? And I was like, okay, we live in an apartment complex. There are a lot of other activities available to you. Like, there's a swimming pool, there's a spa pool, there's a gym. You can do something else rather than be tortured in your room, bearing witness to something that you don't want to bear witness to. Like, I mean, honestly, I feel like she must have had her ear pressed up to a glass against the door, because I just don't know how it even heard anything.
Yes. Yeah. There's a couple things I think about. Number one is, like, I would just purchase a sound machine. I'd purchase a sound machine on Amazon. So we have sound machines. I'm going to show you what they are.
Oh, therapists have that. So
it's the therapy. So we have, can you see it? So I'm going to turn it on.
Oh, it looks like a toilet roll.
Well, we could probably just turn on the fan.
Can you hear it?
I can't hear it.
Okay. It's a sound machine. You can get it on Amazon, and it works great. You could also turn the fan on. I mean, if
I can play noise, and
oh my God. So,
and the reality is that, yep, we're going to be having sex. That's part of a relationship. Do you want to talk about, do you need any information just in general about sex? Lola, okay, okay.
I need to be like, no.
Yeah, no. And the second thing is, Lola, what are you concerned about? What's the concern for you? Like, what's the deeper issue here?
Yeah, so because what happens with this is an example of a situation where things can go horribly wrong for us as a family unit.
Okay.
So because I try and respond from a place of like, I didn't think to ask her what her concern is, because so I try and get
now you have it. Now you have a tip.
I do. I have a tip. I
Mhm.
try and go into my therapist self, but obviously I'm not a therapist, so I don't do very well at that. But I try and like come from a place of sex is a healthy part of a relationship. This is something you'll discover when you have your own relationship.
Mhm.
But Bex gets really angry. Well, I perceive it as
Mhm.
anger. It may not be, but
Mhm. Is it anger, Bex? What is it? Anger? Is
I
it
think
anger?
there's anger. I mean, there's anger, hurt,
Mm.
I don't know, like
you find it rude.
I find it rude. I find it really an objectionable attitude. Like I can't even
Mhm.
fathom where it's like okay for a teenager to comment on their parent's
Mhm.
sex life. I mean, I wouldn't have dreamed of such a thing. Like, it's so personal. Like
Okay.
if I were living
Mhm.
with roommates, unless they were like keeping me awake,
Mhm.
I mean, I'd be too embarrassed to
Sure.
comment on their sex life, like
Yeah, I can
and
hear that. So I want to say I absolutely hear that, Bex, and it's actually quite common for teenagers, especially nowadays, to let everyone know how they feel about everything. Okay. So, but I also want to validate the parts of you using a little bit of internal family systems language that are angry, right? That are like shocked and hurt. Really valid parts of you that are experiencing that, because if you think about it, why are those feelings coming up for you? The hurt. Are you open to just seeing like, why is the hurt coming up?
well, because like the first, I mean, there's it's almost like there is a bit of rivalry between Lola and I for Nell's attention, and I'm trying to be very mindful of that because I know that's very stressful for Nell. So I try to take a step back from that and look at that. But then I think, but this is, I mean, this is an important relationship.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I feel that's a good question because
Can I just say something just while you think you can collect your thoughts? I just want to say, like, the last time we had sex was over 2 weeks ago. So it's not
long time ago.
It's not like we're subjecting Lola to,
Yeah.
daily.
Oh no. Well, and here, let's just kind of even reframe that. Let's reframe that too, because you're not subjecting Lola to anything, right? The reality is you're both being incredibly conscientious, like overboard to where it's like, okay, there's no sound whatsoever. That's why I was like, turn a fan on so that, like, literally, I would just
head in a pillow.
it's like you're doing everything. I also want to validate, Bex, for you that, and just kind of that curiosity for you that you're like, wow, why am I hurt? And I think you said something that may perhaps is a trailhead to explore, maybe on your own, which is, this relationship is really important to me with Nell. And so what you said earlier, I think Nell said it, which is Lola has really struggled with you and has said at times, get rid of Bex, basically. And so, it's just already, it's like you have this history, in your life of adult diagnosed autistic. There's intersectionality with like gender and sexuality, and now you have someone in your house that's a bully. Now, teenagers can be bullies. I just want to say, for all of everybody on the planet that has a teenager, holy cow, really awful bullies. And even no matter how old we are, it hurts. Sometimes what they say is so cruel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lola can be really cruel to me. That's the other thing.
She can.
So, I mean, I in this case, I mean, I did a good thing, I think. I mean, these are the things, and I do these things that I'm like, okay, I'm going to commit myself to behaving better. When I do it, I expect a pat on the back, but I don't get it. But anyway,
I'm sorry. You did really well.
Oh.
I shut the bathroom door. I mean, the bedroom door.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an ensuite bathroom. It's great. I mean, we live in a in our master bedroom is probably big enough for actually us to live in.
Wow. Okay. That's cool.
It's a
I
tiny
mean,
house.
it's tiny. It's like a tiny house.
That's nice.
Yeah, but I shut the door. Now it's slammed because of the wind coming in, and it sounded like I slammed the door. So granted, but anyway, I didn't mean to slam the door. It slammed. I shut the door. I, had I sat there and I sort of started thinking, like, what is going on here? And I actually thought, I actually do, like you said, like teenagers will say everything that's on their minds, like that they actually have too much power. I mean, I don't know, like I feel like I'm really old fashioned, and then I start feeling like I'm channeling my parents, and I don't want to do that. But
good awareness.
Fine for Lola to have her feelings. That's okay. But it's not fine for her to take her feelings and make them our problem or to put them on us. And then I started thinking about some stuff that happens on social media where people say really objectionable things.
Yes, we
like,
see it all the time.
I mean, I'm just flabbergasted at like some of the stuff with autistic people being transphobic, and
yes,
I've run into a couple of those things today or recently. I mean, that's maybe one of the things is like, first thing this morning, one of my friends on LinkedIn post a message said, have you seen this? This is basically two different mutual connections, not somebody I know personally, but people I follow because
sure,
good stuff.
And
I'm like, okay, I in my head compared Lola to that in the sense of like, Lola has opinions. It's perfectly valid to have opinions, but I don't really need to engage with them. And in my opinion, a 16-year-old commenting on my sex life when I'm trying very hard to be respectful, or, and telling us that we shouldn't have it, telling us a lot of things, like that we shouldn't be visible from the open window from the street, that we shouldn't
talk with the door open
because people can hear us. And we had Lola go out to the street and stand there while Nell talked specifically about geraniums, just to see if Lola's like, I heard you talking. I said, well, what did we talk about? Well, I don't know. There's what kind of flower did we mention? No.
Yes. So Bex, what you're saying is boundaries.
Yeah.
And boundaries are so healthy because children, no matter how old they are, need boundaries and consistency and structure and safety. It creates safety. So it is okay to say, you're entitled to your opinion, you don't. And I love how Nell said, there are many activities that you can go do. At the first sign that you sense, oh, I heard a little noise, they must be having sex. Leave the house then. You're 16. You're 16, leave the house. And I also like and think it's okay to say you're entitled to your opinion and your feelings, and you don't get to be hurtful about it. Right?
That's such a good way of putting it. Yeah, because that's I think I said this morning, you are. What did I did? I wish you'd heard what I said, because I felt I said some really good things, like you're entitled to have this. I know, because Lola was being I found she was being very rude.
I don't sit by the door with a glass, by the way. I try to not hear.
Yeah.
The way she was speaking to me was very unkind and rude. And I said, that's right. And I said, you don't need to speak to me in that sarcastic way. And she said, oh, well, I'm allowed to speak to you however I like. And I said, okay, well, I'm also at liberty then not to engage with you when you speak to me like that.
Nell's so good. See, I don't have the mental capacity to think those things. Well, that's why you were the communications professional, but also you're just a better parent.
Well, but I like that saying of, what did you say, Candice? You said,
you're entitled to have your feelings, and, you don't get to be hurtful about it. It's like, you don't get to hurt others with, right? It's like that's the thing. And I liked how you said it too, right? It's like, but what I want to acknowledge, and hopefully maybe perhaps your daughter will never, ever hear this recording.
She won't. She thinks it's a bunch of lame old people.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because we told her that we were doing a podcast, and she was, and we described the podcast, and I think she looked you up, and she said, She has one listener.
No, 10 listeners, but
No,
that's
10
on,
listeners.
but that's on Spotify. So I'm sure you have.
Yeah, that's right. She looks you up on Spotify, and so she just thinks that we do this lame stuff. I mean, even
That's
wearing
so
these
funny.
shirts,
Well,
you know.
what's funny is the follower thing that everyone's obsessed with having, which is so funny to me. The world is such a matrix.
I'm sure more than
And
people listen to this podcast.
oh, I'm positive of that. I really have compassion for the two of you, because what I want to say is Lola is being incredibly cruel and disrespectful. And, when a teenager says something like, because Lola's not actually, I've heard it from so many teenagers. I mean, just where I can talk to you the way I want to. And that's where it just gets a neutral, as neutral as you can be, boundary of, well, I don't have to engage with you, or, well, there's the door, or, okay, whatever the boundary is, so that they understand that that is not okay. That is absolutely not okay. And
Yeah,
the deeper issue that might be going on is this transition, right? It's a new
think so.
place, if Lola was in New Zealand and now is in Montana, and it's the change of friend groups and change of schools, and so might have some deeper issues of anger that's unresolved at all these transitions.
well,
And
which she wanted to make. She was, I mean, she was the first person I spoke to about coming here. I actually asked her before I spoke to Bex. I said, how would you feel if we tried to go and live in America for a while?
Even though it was my kid, it was Nell's idea.
It was my idea to come here.
yeah.
And Lola was so totally keen on it. But I think what you're saying is very valid, because we have moved towns. So Lola's left. She went to that small town school for a year.
Yes.
Now she's going to go to a different high school with it. So she's going to have new friends. She's very conscious that we chose this apartment complex because she can walk to school. Like it's only a mile away, so she can easily go to school all through the winter. And the footpaths are plowed, it's very easy.
Yeah.
So she's conscious that we are actually on display to her potential friend group. And that, Bex standing in the hallway in their towel. Well, God, what if people see Lola, remember Lola when she gets to school, remember that she came out of that house with the person in the towel.
Yes. Well, and the fear of being judged, of bullying. Lola's at an age where, she's also just potentially insecure, or just, exploring, what does it mean for me to be sexual? I mean, 16 is a hard age, right? And like you said, that starting a new school, and what will people think, and wanting to fit in, which we know in the trauma, when we look at trauma, we know that when folks, and autistic ADHD folks actually do this quite often, where we try and fit in, we're trying to figure out the setting, we're fawning to try and be liked. All three of those fit in the category of a sympathetic response in our autonomic nervous system, which is trauma. It's a trauma response. So what's happening is these deeper wounds that have probably been activated inside Lola, I could be wrong, but I'm going to go here, are showing up as anger, because anger feels safer. It's just safer than feeling really vulnerable. And in reality, there probably needs to be a good cry with Nell.
It does. And I saw that this morning, and so what happens is Lola says these things out of these things that reflect the wounds, but they come out angrily. And then Bex responds also angrily. So there's a big, if I can just have time alone with Lola. I mean, this morning when she was talking to me, she actually had tears. I could tell she had tears in her eyes, and she was saying, well, how come you get to, basically it was about, I want more time with you. Because I work so much, with my driving, I've been working over 50 hours a week. So the time together that we used to have, we no longer have. And when I am at home, I'm incredibly tired, and I basically just need to have dinner and go to bed. So she's really feeling that, and that's where it's coming from.
There you go. So beautiful awareness. And I think it's okay for you and Bex to have perhaps an agreement between each other where it's like, Bex, I love you, we're good. Can you just give me some time to talk with Lola? I can see the tears. So some sort of like, whether it's a little code statement or, just something where it's like something where you both know.
That's something that I am aware of, and I try to give that space, partly because I know it's important and partly because I just don't want to be present for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's
it-
appropriate for me to be present for that, really. And I don't want to hear it because I don't know. It just, I mean, it just magnifies to me that, like, I mean, I guess I'll struggle with feeling like I'm a complete outsider in this dyad of Nell and Lola.
And what I want to reassure you with is, again, this is such a common dynamic when you have a child that you're sharing time with another parent that moves in full time. So Bex, I really want to validate that for you, that of course, right now with this transition and the like getting kind of attacked, that you would feel like an outsider. And what you're physically seeing and the world seeing, because it's on video, is that Nell is comforting you. So just see if you can embody that, knowing, Nell's here for you. And you're unified. You're just both trying to navigate a new situation that's challenging.
Oh, I mean, and this is one of the things I find the most hard is when Bex says things like, well, I'm just going to leave. I don't have a place in this family. And I just feel like so devastated by that, because this family is nothing without Bex. I mean, my life would be just, I mean, I just can't even bear to think of my life if Bex was suddenly no longer in it,
Yeah.
And I also feel that
grieve for 6 days and then go,
oh, well, I feel that Lola actually I know that Lola loves Bex and Lola values Bex in her life, in Lola's life. And I mean, I see the two of them, they cook together, they talk it like really intensely about issues and stuff that I'm just like, oh, I couldn't even give a fuck. I just want to zone out and go and like Facebook Marketplace,
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. And what I want to say to that is that it's really important for all of us, no matter how old or young our children are, to remember we're the adults in the room. And when their teenage or their child, they come out, it activates our teenage parts and it activates our child parts. And so sometimes we can respond as teenagers and be little shits back. And that's really something to be mindful of in terms of, ooh, wow, I'm noticing that I'm activated. Okay, what did that bring up in me? Well, Nell says, hey, I'm just going to take some time with Lola. Bex, that's an opportunity for you to go de-escalate. Take some time to kind of say, what was that about? Who does Lola remind me of? Is that there's something? Because a lot of times that's what it is, where there's this reminder of something said. And if you can kind of be curious about it, curiosity is such a gift. When I was Lola's age, was there someone that treated me this way? Was there someone that talked to me this way? Or around that same age? Well, maybe, gosh, I wasn't 16, but I was 12. And I remember this mean, kid on the playground or whatever. That can start a beautiful process of loving that Bex at 12. Whether you rock yourself, this is what I love about stimming. We soothe ourselves and just imagining holding that younger Bex to say, hey, we're okay now. I'm this age now. This is giving that part of you data. This is my partner Nell's teenage daughter. I'm not back in this situation. We're okay. So that you can calm your system down and feel that clarity that comes when we do tend and befriend those parts of us that are young and wounded that need us to show up.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes, like, and I guess it's the autism, the sensory overload part. And I mean, because I've been working on like unmasking, I guess, and then of course I mean, that's hard. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah, unmasking is hard.
It's like, what is the mask? What, you know, communication wise, like, going through my realizing that people have been speaking in subtext for decades to me, you know, and then thinking that everything's loaded with subtext because that's what I've learned, you know, all of those things, but also just giving space for my own sensory, you know,
Yes.
too much sound, too much,
Yes.
you know,
And also that historically, we know that it's our experience to have been bullied. And Lola is activating potentially those parts of you that are younger that have been bullied. And so our hardware is that sensory overload when it's loud. Our hardware, our software are those parts of ourselves that are wounded that perhaps just need us to show up and comfort and reassure, I got you. This is not the bully at school.
Or your ex-wife, you know, who was.
Yes.
yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that's circling back, as the corporate people say.
Rounding back.
Okay.
Circling back to an early part of this conversation about the trauma of being back in Livingston and being in closer communication with my ex, who with whom I spent 15 years, not knowing why I was having meltdowns, not knowing, I mean, I knew I had trauma, you know, and there was, but also, you know, I had periods of depression, but also was being gaslit, and, you know,
yes,
you're crazy, and you're this and you're that, you know, and it was all me. It was all on me. And I mean, even all the while, this person was, I probably shouldn't, don't think she'll ever listen to this either, but, and not only not knowing that I was autistic, but she had an incredible lack of curiosity about what was actually wrong with me.
Yeah, or going on.
And that's the thing about Nell, is like, well, when this psychologist that I was seeing, because I kept having these meltdowns and I was just, you know, brought it up. And now I think the first thing was, well, what is to be, you know, just in a curious way, what is to be gained from exploring this?
Yes.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had to think about that. Well, what is to be gained? And I want to know what's wrong with me. You know, what's you know, making me do that. You know, I want to know. And this is really interesting because I spent years like diagnosing other people in my family. I mean, informally, obviously, but
yeah,
my father to start with, and thinking and having sort of relating to movie characters, or, you know, other or other people who were autistic, but not really thinking that applied to me because I was too social, or, you know, whatever, some stereotype that didn't fit.
Yes.
Or too talkative or whatever. I'm talkative, I realize, because I'm always trying to be really precise. I have to talk, and it drives Lola crazy. Like, will you just shut up? Like, I got it. The first sentence, just, it's too much, you know? And I think, you know, there is a clash with our neurotypes as well, but.
And so compassion for both of you, if there's a way that the two of you could, you know, find a way to communicate. If it's too much for her, instead of saying shut up, because again, that's disrespectful. Okay, Lola, that's disrespectful. Even if Lola just did this.
Yeah.
Right.
We've talked about going to family therapy because we've thought that something needs to change in our, because Lola's take on it is, oh, well, I just have to get through 2 more years and then I can leave home and I'll just leave you and Bex to it. And I've said, well, actually, there's another way. Like, we can find new ways of interacting that mean that we can have a really lovely 2 years together before you go off and do
therapy's lame and for losers.
But like the interesting thing about, I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, and what you said, Candice, about the inner teenager getting activated. I'm so glad that you've heard that from Candice, because I've tried to say this. My own therapist has said this to me years ago, about my own relationship with my then teenager, who's now 24, but I think is still interacting with me from that teenage wounded place. But so my therapist has said, when you're dealing with your daughter, your teenage self is getting activated, and I see it now in relation to not Lola, who's 16, but in relation to Kai, who's Bex's kid, who's 17. I've recognized that very strongly about myself, that my teenage self gets activated and I respond from a place that isn't centered and grounded and the grown up in the room.
Yes.
But I've said that to Bex, and I feel like Bex has not necessarily, I don't feel like you've necessarily taken it on board.
Well, it's not, I don't think it's that I haven't taken it on board. I think it's true. I'm not really sure what to do with it. I'm not really sure
Well, I think that's where we've heard some really good
yeah,
guidance from Candice.
But what it sounds like is you're talking about like nurturing that inner teenager who's
been wounded,
rather than just stop it, shut up and be an adult. I'm selling myself.
Oh yeah.
Just stop it and be a grown up.
Which is also what I have said very unhelpfully at times said, I want to be in a relationship with a person who can be a grown up.
Yeah. And the reality is, so if we can be tender with ourselves, because we're all human and we say things we regret. Okay. So please be tender with yourselves. And this is where, if you're both curious and any of our listeners are curious about internal family systems, this is what we've been talking about today. Because what I love as an IFS therapist is that instead of saying, well, like, shut up and throwing get in the naughty room to my little child parts, right? It is being curious, I'm just going to be curious. And wow, when someone says something that hurts me, wow, I notice my chest hurts. Okay, I'm just going to get kind of curious. What's going on there? Wow, okay, that feels if I just kind of tune in, what is that? Wow, that's bringing up a memory of, right? Like I'm saying, when I was younger and this happened, okay, can I just tend to and befriend that sensation or that part of me and get to know it? There's lots of books on internal family systems. One of my favorites is by Tammy Sollenberger called The One Inside. Tammy also has a podcast called The One Inside. And it's just Tammy's book is written the way Tammy talks, which is, if you listen to her, she's hilarious. But I love how simple it is. That's how my brain works, very concrete. I just need scripts and things spelled out. And it is just this real beautiful way of saying like, oh, hi, there's that part of you. And that what I like to do after I befriend is, gosh, what do you need from me? Because for you, Bex, that part, and it's not what do you need? What do you need from Nel? What do you need from Lola? No, those parts need us. And oftentimes those parts don't actually know, one, who we are, and two, that we actually grew up and survived what we came from. So if we start with, it's like sometimes parts will just say, I just needed to say that. I just needed to say that I'm hurt. And then you go, oh, I don't feel that anymore. So it's like, it can be so simple, right? Or it might be like, I just need you, like you might hear inside or get a sensation of like, wow, I just need to actually take some alone time right now. And it, again, parts work, I think, can get kind of abstract for a lot of folks. I actually just wrote a chapter with my colleague, Meg Martinez de Monte, for the book Altogether Us. It's a neuro-inclusive approach to IFS to help people understand, like, there are ways that we can be curious about our parts, even if it's just like drawing it out or listening to music and going, like, I'm very tuned into music, and I will have parts like Madonna. I was 12. I mean, I just think I was cleaning the bathroom at my parents' house. I was 12, and Borderline, Madonna's song Borderline came on. And I remember, it's like, I just, that connects me to those parts of me.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Right? It's like, so I just want to put that out there. I mean, clearly we've talked for almost like an hour and a half today, which has just been so beautiful. Thank you both. Yeah, no, thank you.
you.
No need to make a face, but just some tips and tools that, if you listen to this again, just some tips and tools for navigating what so many mixed neurotype couples, so many same neurotype couples are working through, which is a change in an environment, moving, all these life stresses, and even like blended family, an angry stepkid. It's like, thank you both for being so vulnerable and candid with me and with our audience, and also just allowing me to give you some tips and tools. We jokingly said this is going to be a free therapy session, but what I love about the two of you is we can go here, and I actually get a lot of positive feedback because of this specific podcast that the three of us do, where it is just this conversation where it's like people are going to listen and go, wow, okay, this is normal. Oh my gosh, okay, I love what Nel said. I love how Bex said this. I love what Candice said. And I also want to give you two a shout out, because I did a presentation last year, and the podcast, I took clips of your podcast to show clinicians. I want you to listen to this mixed neurotype couple and really how badass they are at communicating. And really, so thank you truly for being such a beautiful example of relationships that work.
Wow, thank you, Candice.
And that can work.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
Thank you so much. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, because
this is the thing, like I feel seen, because like Nel and Nola went to Seattle last week, and then Nel brought me back this book called Spectrums, and it was edited by,
do you know it?
I've heard of it.
It's essays by
autistic. I love it.
In their own words.
And
love it.
And of course, then the first thing is I get sidetracked because the editor looks like our PA, our our provider. And I started talking about her because she's queer and whatever, and
about the big car.
And I don't know, like,
Bex was like, oh, and Rebecca's got this big truck and blah blah, and then I was like, sweetheart, really seeking from you some acknowledgement of me that I got you this book.
And the thing is, I actually feel really seen and really touched by this present, but then somehow I went off on this rabbit trail. And so, yeah.
So I do that too. And I want you to know that I do that too, because that's how our brains work. And so my gentle invitation is, can we not be hard on ourselves? Can we look at it as, oh, wow, my brain took me over here to this red truck story. And wow, oh, Nell's bringing me back, and just leave it at that. Just leave it at that.
And no shame.
4 or 5 years
shame.
ago, it would have been, Nell be really hurt and upset. Because
I would have left the room and gone and like sat on the floor and gone, oh my God, himself.
But instead, Nell said, sweetheart, can you acknowledge? And then my guess is you said, oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, Bex actually said, oh, but this is such a meaningful gift to me. And I said, well, what you're doing doesn't express that to me. But also I can recognize in that moment that, like, I have to know that Bex is always coming from that place, of appreciation, of gratitude, of love for me, like, instead of, because my default setting, I don't know, maybe the way I evolved in the world, my default setting is always that, oh, that person doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. So great awareness. And again, that may be also a story from a part of you. Oh, well, if Tatum's okay with it, we'll go for a few more minutes. I'm not hearing anything. So yes, thumbs up. Okay, cool. Thumbs up. Yeah, it's like, so a couple things, even if you say no, wow, it didn't feel that way. That's an opportunity for Bex to say, again, this is just resolution, just resolving it. Wow, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me know. Can we have a do-over?
We need the scripts. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Well, that's why this is recorded, and you can listen to it 1,000 times, because Chris and I do that all the time, where it's like one of us, because it's not just me. right? Sometimes he'll blow it with communication. It's like, we're humans, there's no right way to communicate truly. So sometimes he'll just, I'll say, wow, that was really impactful. And he'll say, can we have a do-over? Yes, let's have a do-over. Let's do it again.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
just start over, and then it's like we move on from it.
Yep.
Right.
And this is the
a
place
better for it.
This is the place where I actually do think it was really good that I was, went through the evaluation for autism and diagnosis or the identification,
Totally.
because given kind of some answers as to why. I mean,
and what I love about this journey that we're on is I love seeing Bex evolve into their authentic autistic self. Like, they sit in the kitchen now and they'll rock back and forwards on the chair, which when they first started doing the rocking, I was like, oh, that's quite hard. But now I'm just like, it's like seeing them speak their own language.
Yes.
Like their indigenous language, it's
I love how you just said that, because so my partner, Chris, is Lakota, Hawaiian, and Japanese indigenous. And when we do ceremony, what I've noticed lately is he started doing this. And what he's doing when he's doing this is actually channeling.
Right.
And so I love that you just brought that in. It is a language, right? It is a way that we communicate. It's a way that we're tuning in. It's to our bodies. It's a way that we're calming ourselves, soothing ourselves. So it's just, again, you're both evolving. And how cool is it that we talked like over a year ago, and look where you're still evolving. So this one is just in the books, huge success. This will always be out there. You two are fantastic, fabulous. You're close to us, so we really need to just connect.
We just need to get on an airplane.
Yeah, we just need to. Yeah, thank you both. Really, truly.
Oh, you're amazing! My gosh,
with your studies, that sounds so cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thank you both. Okay. And yeah, my gosh, this is probably the longest one we've done, which is good. Necessary. Yeah. Yeah. I have a dear friend that listens to every single one, and I guarantee this one they're going to say, amazing. So I'll let you know, but thank you both.
Thank you.
And
thank you
thank you both. And I just want to say to our audience and our listeners, I say this all the time, you are love. Love is the medicine, and love heals. And so can we have more love for ourselves and for those around? If we can heal each other and Gaia. And Gaia is in desperate need of that. So, just have a most beautiful day, everyone. Until next time. Bye.